Thank you, Mr. Grant. Judy Waltz.
Is this
Just turn a switch and you can certainly use it. We'll help you with it.
No. I really don't need a microphone. I have a large volume voice. Is this radio? Okay, good morning. Ms. Bishop and myself are here to support our First Amendment rights of freedom to assemble. Our First Amendment rights are our only purpose. Other protesters are supporting their own agendas. June 6, 2009, Supervisor Stone, your wife Regina Stone, was approached and hugged by Catherine Frazier. There you can see she's approaching. And here you can see the hug. And hugged by Catherine Frazier. It's very apparent that your family has a close relationship with the very person who requested that you champion the efforts to enact the ramrodding of Ordinance 884. At the very least, you have an ethical obligation to disclose your personal relationships before enacting ordinances. And then on June 20th, the kickoff of your campaign for California State Senate, these two gentlemen used thug intimidating tactics by filming our vehicle and license plate. When this was brought to you at the last week's meeting, you refused to acknowledge if the two gentlemen were campaign staff members. I found out who one of the gentlemen is. He is Jonathan Butner. He's the COO of the Riverside Party of San Diego County and your campaign manager. Shame on you and shame on your colleagues. Supervisor Stone, you proclaim to be a strong believer in the United States Constitution. A strong believer in the United States Constitution doesn't send his campaign manager out to harass women who are simply exercising their constitutional rights to protest peacefully. I'm really, you're an insult to the Republican Party. You really and truly are. You don't need to use these type of tactics. And this is you and your campaign manager at the John and Ken rally for the taxes.
Actually, a good picture. I'd like to get a copy of it if I could.
Well, I'm going to enter it into the record so you will have a copy of it.
Thank you. My wife would like it.
That would be very nice. So, I mean, you need to reconsider what you're doing when you suppress people's rights to free speech. Just like when Mr. Ackerman came here from Sweden, and you told him, welcome to America, the country of the freedom of speech, but you failed to tell him you limit people's rights to freedom of speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waltz. It's always nice seeing you. Ms. Bishop?
I wasn't planning on being here today. I was actually watching the meeting at home, and I decided to come down, Ms. Walls, when I heard you talk to Mr. I'm a Clown, and you told him that he had to abide by the Brown Act. And it really just perplexed me because the board, Mr. Supervisor Stone, hasn't abided by the Brown Act himself. So I'm wondering why you're willing to enforce the Brown Act when it comes to the public, but not when it comes to the actual Board of Supervisors. The alleged anonymous pamphlet was presented for over 9 minutes, and it wasn't. You can laugh all you want, Mr. Stone. I don't really think this is funny. Actually, you're coming across quite arrogant. So I'm wondering why the alleged anonymous pamphlet wasn't entered into the record according to the Brown Act, and every time we bring it up, it's just ignored. But you go ahead and you tell the public that they have to abide by the Brown Act. So I was wondering if you could just answer that question for me.
You don't have to, unless you want to. Go ahead.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
That anonymous booklet,
Alleged.
the booklet, I believe has been part of this record.
Actually, Miss Julie Waltz and I had to go down to Nathan Baca's office and get a copy of it. It was not entered into the record by the person who presented it at the meeting on December the 9th, and the person who presented it was Mr. Stone.
You know what? I believe it is part of the public record. The clerk probably has a copy of that booklet.
Because Julie Waltz and I entered it into the record.
I've had the courtesy to let you.
But you're misstating facts. And so every time you misstate a fact, I'm going to correct you.
Ms. Bishop, I believe the pamphlet has been entered in.
By Julie Waltz and Lirra Bishop.
We've got a copy of it. Again, I've said it many times over. That really isn't relevant. While it was the impetus for the ordinance, it's not what was the impetus for it to be passed.
Well, if it wasn't the impetus for it to be passed, then why did Mr. Tavaglione make it a point to tell Mr. Chaquette that he was on camera, and did you bring your cape and mask? That alleged anonymous pamphlet was very influential to this board, and it very inflammatory. I can see where you would get offended by something like that, the way it was presented, but let's be very clear. It was not presented by Supervisor Stone. It was presented by Supervisor Stone, but it wasn't entered into the record. You still haven't answered my question as to why you haven't enforced the Brown Act when it comes to the actual board.
Ms. Bishop, if I might just clarify, we do take care of and enforce the Brown Act here. And in addition,
why was it not entered into the record by Mr. Stone?
It is part of the record.
It was not part of the record. It was not entered into the record by Mr. Stone.
You know, Ms. Bishop, if that is the case, it was probably inadvertence. It is now part of it, and
how did it become part of the record?
Could I finish, please?
How did it become part of the record?
Not only is it part of the record, you probably brought it to the to one of these hearings in addition to the time it came up originally.
No, we did not. We went to the office of Nathan Baca, and it's signed in the back by Nathan Baca that he provided the copy.
In the end, it is largely irrelevant. And
it is not irrelevant because it was made.
Your time is up. Thank you, Ms. Bishop. I'm just going to make a comment here that whether a public official takes the podium and references a piece of material, or whether a member of the public comes up and references a piece of material, it is at the option of that person presenting the case that they're trying to make before a board of supervisors, before a city council, where they want to submit something to be a part of the public record. So there is no mandate. We don't ask everyone who comes up to the microphone to leave their notes with the county clerk, otherwise they've broken some laws. That applies to public officials that go to the podium. It applies to the private public that goes to the podium. So to answer them, there was no Brown Act violation, and they received a copy of the alleged missing anonymous booklet that was described by me in a hearing showing the heinous activities of this unfortunate group of people. And it's a public record now, and there's no necessity to make it a part of the public record, just like we wouldn't demand anybody else make a public record of any document that they bring up to the podium. So we will now adjourn to closed session for 5 minutes, maybe? Or?
You're going to have one.
Okay. Okay.